My parents disowned me in 10th grade for getting pregnant 20 years later. They showed up demanding to meet their grandson, but what they saw left them speechless. My parents gave me 10 minutes to pack. My mother said it in the foyer. "You're not keeping it." The marble floor felt cold through my socks. I was 17, 3 months pregnant, still wearing my school uniform, the plaid skirt and white blouse from Thornhill Academy, where tuition cost more than most people's cars. My father stood by the grandfather clock, arms crossed. He didn't look at me, just stared at the Waterford crystal vase on the console table like it held answers. "We've made an appointment," my mother continued, voice sharp and controlled. "Friday, Dr. Chen. It's already paid for." I opened my mouth. My throat felt tight. "I'm keeping my baby." The silence that followed had weight, pressure, like the air before a storm. My mother's hand tightened around her phone. Her knuckles went white against the rose gold case. "Then you're not keeping this house." The bedroom I'd lived in for 17 years suddenly felt like a museum exhibit. Pale blue walls, debate team trophies lined up on floating shelves, a Stanford acceptance letter pinned above my desk, early admission, full academic scholarship, the future my parents had engineered since I was 5, worthless now. My father appeared in the doorway. He set a black trash bag on the hardwood floor. The sound it made, plastic against wood, was somehow louder than anything he'd said all night. 10 minutes, he said. Not pack what you need. Not let's talk about this. Not we can figure something out. Just 10 minutes. Like I was expired food being cleared from the fridge. I grabbed clothes without looking. Jeans, sweaters, my winter coat, toothbrush from the bathroom, the framed photo of my grandmother, Nana Sigrid, the only person in this family who'd ever asked me what I wanted instead of telling me what I should be. She died when I was 14, heart attack, quick and quiet, like she lived. My mother waited at the front door, counting on her Cartier watch. When I came downstairs, she had our family portrait in her hands, the one from Martha's Vineyard 2 summers ago, all 4 of us in white linen on the beach, smiling like we were made of something real instead of appearances and stock portfolios. She turned it face down on the console table. The glass made a small crack against the wood. "You're an embarrassment," she said, each word precise, surgical. "To this family, to yourself. Don't come back." My father opened the door. Cold October air rushed in. I walked out carrying everything I owned in a garbage bag that said "Hefty" in red letters. The door closed behind me with a sound like a vault ceiling. I stood on the front steps of the house I grew up in, the brownstone in the Upper East Side with the brass numbers and the seasonal wreath my mother changed religiously, holding my entire life in 30 gallons of plastic. The night air smelled like cut grass and automatic sprinklers. Down the street, I could see the Wexler's house, the Cohens, the Patels, families I'd known my whole life, people who'd smile at me in the grocery store and ask about college plans. None of them would smile now. I walked until my feet hurt. I slept in Riverside Park that first night, under a stone pavilion near 96th Street, using my jacket as a pillow. Every sound made me flinch. Every shadow looked like security guards or worse. At dawn, I woke to someone standing over me, an older woman, gray hair pulled back in a loose bun, worn cardigan with patches at the elbows, eyes like she'd seen this exact scene before and knew how it ended. "You're too young to be out here," she said. Her voice had an accent. Italian, maybe. Soft around the edges. I didn't answer. Didn't know what to say. She held out a silver thermos. Coffee. Real sugar. Still hot. I stared at it. At her. "I don't take charity," I said. "Good. I don't give it." She unscrewed the cap and poured. Steam rose in the cold morning air. "I'm offering you coffee and a conversation. What you do after that is your business." Her name was Elena Rossi. She was 72, a widow, no children of her own. She owned a small bookstore on Amsterdam Avenue, the kind with creaky floors and towers of used books stacked to the ceiling, and a fat orange cat named Tolstoy, who slept in the Russian literature section. "You can work the register," she said, after I'd told her everything, not the sanitized version, the real one. "Upstairs apartment's empty. Previous tenant moved to Portland last month. It's small, 1 room, but it's warm, and it locks." I stared at her, this stranger offering me a life. "Why would you do that?" She smiled, sad and knowing and ancient. "Because someone did it for me once," she said, "and because I have a feeling about you. You're stronger than you know." The apartment smelled like old books and lemon oil. 1 room, a kitchenette with a 2-burner stove, a bathroom with hexagonal tiles older than my parents, a window that looked out over the street where I could see the bookstore's sign, Rossi's Rarities, but it had a door that locked from the inside. That first night, I sat on the floor. There was no furniture yet, and cried for the first time since leaving. Not quiet tears, ugly, choking sobs that came from somewhere deep and raw. Elena didn't ask questions. She just brought soup in a thermos and sat with me until I could breathe again. The pregnancy was harder than I expected. Morning sickness that lasted all day, back pain, swollen ankles, the constant gnawing fear that something would go wrong and I'd be alone when it did. But Elena was there. She drove me to every appointment at the free clinic on 110th, held my hand during the ultrasound when I saw my son for the first time, a tiny bean-shaped shadow with a heartbeat that sounded like galloping horses. She helped me pick a name. "Sigurd," I said, lying on the examination table with gel on my stomach. My grandmother's maiden name, before she married into the family that eventually threw me out. Elena squeezed my hand. A strong name for a strong boy. When my son was born on a Tuesday morning in March, Elena was there. She held my hand through every contraction, counted breaths, wiped my forehead with a cool cloth. She cut the cord when the nurses asked if there was family present. She was the first person to hold him. "Hello, Sigurd," she whispered, tears streaming down her weathered face. "Welcome to the world. We've been waiting for you." Years passed quietly. Sigurd grew up in the bookstore, did homework at the counter, surrounded by the smell of old paper and coffee, learned to read early, devouring everything from Dr. Seuss to Dickens. Customers loved him. The regulars brought him candy, asked about school, treated him like the neighborhood's collective grandchild. Elena taught him Italian, how to make risotto, how to be kind without being soft. I worked the register, managed inventory, and took night classes at community college. Slowly, 1 or 2 courses a semester. It took me 7 years to finish my bachelor's degree. Elena came to my graduation, brought flowers, cried when they called my name. Sigurd was 8. He wore a little suit Elena had found at a thrift store and altered herself. "I'm proud of you, Mama," he said. I thought of my parents, wondered if they were still in that brownstone, still turning photos face down. Probably. At 15, Sigurd told me he wanted to be a doctor. We were closing the store. Tolstoy was asleep on the counter. Rain drummed against the window. "Not for the money," he said, stacking books. "Not for status or whatever, because people shouldn't have to hurt alone." I stopped shelving, looked at him. He'd grown tall, lean, had my dark hair, but Elena's eyes, kind and observant and impossibly old for his age. "Where did that come from?" I asked. "Elena told me about the night she found you," he said. "How you were alone and scared, and how wrong that was." My throat tightened. "You're going to be amazing," I told him. He smiled. "I learned from the best." Sigurd graduated high school as valedictorian, applied to Columbia, Johns Hopkins, Penn, got into all 3. Chose Columbia because it was close, because Elena was 87 now and walked with a cane, because he wanted to be able to visit the bookstore on weekends. "Family stays close," he said. Elena lived to see him accepted to Columbia Medical School. She died 2 weeks later, peacefully, in her sleep, holding a photo of Sigurd in his white coat from the acceptance ceremony. The funeral was small. Just me, Sigurd, and about 40 bookstore regulars who'd become something like family over the years. Sigurd gave the eulogy. His voice shook but held steady. "She didn't give birth to me," he said, "but she's the reason I'm alive. Not just because she gave my mother a home, but because she taught me what family actually means. Showing up, staying, choosing someone every single day." We buried her next to her husband in a cemetery in Queens. That night, Sigurd and I sat in the empty apartment above the bookstore, the same one I'd moved into 20 years ago with nothing but a trash bag and a stranger's kindness. "We're keeping the store open, right?" he asked. "Of course," I said. "She'd haunt us if we didn't." We did, every day. 20 years after that night in the foyer, my parents saw the news. Prodigy surgeon saves 3 lives in record-breaking procedure. It was all over the medical news. CNN, MSNBC, even the Times. The hospital had released a press photo. Sigurd in scrubs. That same serious, focused face, but now with Dr. Sigurd Harrison on his name tag. Harrison, my married name. I'd married Lance Mitchell, Elena's estate lawyer, 5 years after she died. Quiet ceremony, just us and Sigurd. No family, just chosen family. My parents must have been searching my name, following me somehow, waiting. Within a week, gifts started arriving. A Rolex Submariner, overnight delivery, no note. I sent it back. A Mont Blanc pen, engraved, to Dr. Harrison. Returned. A first edition Gray's Anatomy worth $12,000. Returned unopened. Then the letters started. Handwritten on my mother's monogrammed stationery. "Olivia, we've had time to reflect, to grow, to realize the mistakes we made. We were young, frightened. We handled things poorly. We want to make amends. We want to meet our grandson. Family is everything. Love, Mother." I burned it in the sink. The next one came 3 days later. More of the same. Apologies that felt rehearsed. Requests that felt entitled. I burned those too. But my parents didn't stop. They hired a PR firm. Suddenly, my mother was on Channel 7, sitting in their living room. The same room where they'd kicked me out. Tears streaming down her Botoxed face. "We made a terrible mistake," she said, dabbing at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. "We were young, scared. We didn't know how to handle the situation. We want our daughter and our grandson to know. We forgive them. Forgive them." As if Sigurd had done something wrong by being born. As if I had sinned by keeping him. The video went viral. 50,000 views by dinner. 100,000 by the next morning. Strangers commenting. "Everyone deserves a second chance. They're trying. Give them credit. Family is family. Blood matters." The hospital board called me in. Director Schwartz sat behind his massive desk, fingers steepled. "Dr. Harrison," he said carefully, "this is creating optics issues. The board is concerned about negative publicity." "Negative publicity," I repeated. "Perhaps a private meeting with your parents, a statement of reconciliation. It would put this to rest." "No, Olivia, my son is not a prop for their redemption tour," I said. "And if the board has a problem with that, they can fire me," Schwartz sighed. "No one's talking about firing anyone. We just want this resolved quietly. Then tell them to leave us alone. But they didn't. They showed up at the hospital. March 15th, Tuesday afternoon. My mother in Chanel and pearls. My father in a Tom Ford suit, demanding to see their grandson. Security called me down. I found them in the main lobby. My mother clutching her Birkin-like armor. My father checking his Patek Philippe. 20 years. They looked older, grayer, but still polished, still radiating money and entitlement. Olivia, my mother said. Not honey, not sweetheart, just my name. Flat. You need to leave, I said. We just want to talk. You need to leave. Now. My father stepped forward. We have rights. You have nothing, I said. Security, please escort them out. They hired Owen Blake, the boy who got me pregnant, who promised he'd be there, who told me he loved me in the back of his parents' Mercedes and blocked my number the day I told him I was keeping the baby. Now he was working for my parents. Consultant, inside man, whatever they were calling it. The emails surfaced a week later. Lance brought them home, printed, highlighted. Owen to my father. She's emotional, reactive. Push the right buttons and she'll cave. I know how she thinks. Start with an offer. $200K, maybe more. She's working class now. She'll take it. My father's response. Whatever it takes. The boy is our legacy, our bloodline. We want access, not our grandson. Our legacy. Like Sigurd was a trademark, an asset. I read the emails 3 times. Then I looked at Lance. We're ending this, I said. Lance came home the next night with a folder. Manila. Thick. Labeled in Elena's handwriting. Harrison family. Legal documents. Permanent file. I need you to see something, he said. Inside was a document from 20 years ago. Dated October 18th, 2005. The day after they kicked me out. Signed by Robert Harrison and Margaret Harrison. Notarized. Witnessed. Filed with the state. We, Robert and Margaret Harrison, hereby relinquish all parental rights and responsibilities to Olivia Marie Harrison and any children born or unborn. We waive all future claims to contact, custody, inheritance, or relationship in perpetuity. This document is irrevocable and binding. I stared at it. They signed this? Lance nodded. The day after they threw you out. Elena had her lawyer track it down years ago. She wanted protection for you. And for Sigurd. I read it again, slower. Any children born or unborn. They hadn't just disowned me. They'd legally erased Sigurd before he even existed. They don't know you kept this, Lance said. They don't know Elena kept everything, I replied. Lance smiled. Sharp. Want to use it? The Columbia Medical Center annual gala was the biggest event of the year. 500 guests, politicians, donors, hospital board members, press, black tie, open bar, silent auction. My parents had bought a table. Table 1, front row, $20,000. Reserved for Robert and Margaret Harrison and their special guest, Owen Blake. They arrived in a black town car. Designer everything. My mother in Valentino. My father in Brioni. Owen in something expensive and ill-fitting. Smiling for cameras like they were walking a red carpet. The ballroom glittered. Crystal chandeliers, ice sculptures, a 30-foot screen behind the stage for presentations. I sat at table 8 with Lance and Sigurd. Sigurd wore surgical scrubs, not a tuxedo. You sure about this? I asked. He squeezed my hand. Elena would want it. At 8:30, Sigurd took the podium. The room quieted. 500 people turning to watch. Good evening, he said into the microphone, his voice steady, clear. I'm Dr. Sigurd Harrison, chief resident in cardiac surgery, and I'm here to talk about family. My parents sat up straighter, smiling, nodding, ready for their redemption moment. 20 years ago, Sigurd continued, a 17-year-old girl was thrown out of her home for being pregnant. She was given 10 minutes to pack her belongings. No money, no support, no phone call or goodbye, just a garbage bag and a door slammed in her face. The smiles at table 1 froze. She slept in a park that night, scared, alone, wondering if she'd made the right choice keeping her baby. The room was silent now. Absolute. A stranger found her the next morning, an elderly widow named Elena Rossi. She owned a bookstore on Amsterdam Avenue. She gave that girl a job, a home, a family. Behind him, Elena's photo appeared on the massive screen, radiant, smiling, holding baby Sigurd in the bookstore, surrounded by towers of books. Applause rippled through the crowd, soft at first, then building. Elena Rossi didn't give birth to me, Sigurd said, but she's the reason I'm alive. She taught me to read, helped me with homework, paid for my SAT prep course, showed me what unconditional love actually looks like. My mother stood abruptly, chair scraping against marble. We're his grandparents, she shouted, voice cracking. His real family. The room went still. Sigurd looked at her. No anger, no emotion, just calm. No, he said into the microphone. You're strangers who happen to share DNA. My father's face went red. He stood too. This is absurd. Lance, Sigurd said, voice cutting through the noise. The documents, please. Lance walked to the podium, held up a single piece of paper. The screen flashed. The signature page filled the wall, 30 feet high. Relinquishment of parental rights. Robert Harrison, Margaret Harrison, October 18, 2005. We hereby relinquish all rights to Olivia Marie Harrison and any children born or unborn in perpetuity. Gasps filled the ballroom. You didn't just disown my mother, Sigurd said, each word deliberate. You legally erased me before I was even born. You signed paperwork to make sure you'd never have to acknowledge my existence. My mother's face drained of color. That's not, we didn't, it's notarized, Lance Lance said. Filed with the state. Legally binding. My father grabbed the table. We were protecting ourselves. From what? Sigurd asked. From your teenage daughter asking for help? Lance clicked again. New images filled the screen. Emails, text messages, phone logs. Owen to my father. She'll cave. Trust me. I know her. Offer $500K up front. She's broke. She'll take it and we get the kid. My father to Owen. Do whatever it takes. He's our bloodline. Our legacy. We need access. Owen to my father. Working on it. She's stubborn, but everyone has a price. The crowd murmured, shifting in seats. Phones coming out to record. Owen tried to leave. Security stepped in front of the doors. Then the screen changed again. Elena's face appeared. Not a photo this time. A video. Recorded 2 years before she died in the bookstore. Tolstoy visible in the background, asleep on a stack of Hemingway. If you're watching this, Elena said, her voice strong despite her age, then Robert and Margaret Harrison have crawled out from whatever rock they've been hiding under for the past 2 decades. The crowd leaned forward. Let me be clear, Elena continued. You threw away a treasure. I found her. I raised your grandson. I loved them both with everything I had. And now that he's successful, now that he's someone worth bragging about, you want credit? She smiled, cold, sharp. You get nothing. Not his time, not his name, not his forgiveness, not a single moment of the life you threw away. You have 10 minutes to leave this building, starting now, just like you gave Olivia. Lance checked his watch. It's 8:47 p.m., he announced. My father lunged forward. You can't do this. 8:48, Lance said, voice flat. Security moved in. 4 guards, professional, calm. A process server entered from the side door, flanked by 2 police officers. Robert Harrison, Margaret Harrison, Owen Blake, you're being served. The server handed each of them a manila envelope. Restraining orders, Lance said to the crowd. Permanent. No contact with Dr. Sigurd Harrison, Olivia Mitchell, or any member of their family. Violation results in immediate arrest and prosecution. My mother's voice cracked, broke. You'll regret this, both of you. When you're older, when you need family. I stood. Every eye in the ballroom turned to me. I already regretted you, I said, quiet, clear. For 20 years, I regretted believing you loved me. I regretted thinking family meant something to you beyond appearances. I don't anymore. My father pointed. You're making a mistake. The mistake was mine, I said, thinking you'd ever be more than your money and your image. Security escorted them out. Cameras flashed. The crowd watched in silence as my parents, still protesting, still demanding, were walked through the ballroom doors. Owen followed, handcuffed. The police had questions about his recent bankruptcy fraud case. The doors closed. For 10 seconds, the ballroom was silent. Then someone started clapping. Then another. Then the entire room. Standing ovation. Sigurd returned to the microphone. Now, he said, waiting for the noise to die down. Back to what actually matters. The screen changed again. The Elena Rossi Foundation, supporting young mothers, abandoned by their families. Initial funding, $5 million, providing housing, childcare, education, medical care, legal support. The ballroom erupted again, louder this time. Table 1 sat empty, abandoned champagne glasses and untouched plates. The silent auction raised another $2 million that night. By morning, donations had topped $12 million. 3 weeks later, the headlines told the rest. Harrison Industries, CEO steps down amid family scandal. Owen Blake indicted for bankruptcy fraud. Conspiracy Columbia Medical Center raises record. 12 mild orders at annual gala. Elena Rossi Foundation receives 10,000 applications in first week. I didn't watch the news coverage, didn't read the op-eds or think pieces about toxic families or generational wealth. I just sat in the bookstore, the one Sigurd and I kept running after Elena died, and drank coffee from her old silver thermos. Tolstoy purred in my lap, 15 years old now, gray around the whiskers. Outside, the city moved on. Taxis honked. People walked past. Life continued. Inside, I finally felt still. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it signs paperwork. Sometimes it just closes the door and walks away.